Welcome to the Coalition for Career Development's annual summit on career readiness. My name is Brian Albrecht. I serve as the president at Gateway Technical College. I'm also the vice chair for the CCD, and I couldn't be more pleased to welcome you to today's keynote presentation. Career readiness has long been debated, and while there are many examples of some outstanding programs and strategies for success, we also know that it's clear that youth and adults are not equipped with the tools necessary to succeed in all of America's economy. Today I'm honored to introduce you to Nick Pinchuk, the CEO and chairperson for Snap-on Incorporated. Nick is a visionary when it comes to this topic. He's an exemplary career serving his country, his company, and the American workforce. He received his MBA from Harvard and his master's and bachelor's of science degrees in engineering from Rensselaer Polytechnical Institute. He has served our country in Vietnam as an officer of the United States Army. Mr. Pinchuk currently serves on the board of directors for the Columbus McKinnon Corporation, the National Association for Manufacturers, the Manufacturing Institute, the Manufacturing Alliance for Productivity and Innovation, and Carthage College. He also serves on the Senior Advisory Board for Syracuse University School of Management. Before joining Snap-on in 2002, Nick was a senior vice president and president of Snap-on's Worldwide Commercial Industrial Group. Mr. Pinchuk was president of Global Refrigeration Operations, a multi-billion-dollar business unit for Carrier Corporation, a subsidiary of United Technologies. Before then, he was the Ford Motor Company, where he held various positions as financial and engineering production positions. Nick is widely recognized for his leadership in education and workforce development. Skills USA named him Champion of the Year, identifying his extensive support for the growth of the skilled American workforce. Industry Week inducted him into the Manufacturing Hall of Fame, recognizing his work for the American Renaissance. In addition, the International Technology and Engineering Educators Association has recognized him for his far-reaching professional contributions to the field of education. Mr. Pinchuk continues to be an outspoken leader on the importance of workforce development in critical intersections of industry and education. And he supports us through his media presentations as he regularly appears on CNBC and Bloomberg, commenting on global economic scene and advocating for arming everyday people with the skills they need to win the global competition on jobs. Nick, welcome to the CCD Summit.
Thank you. I hope the audience is still awake after that. You know, I have to say this. You're the real visionary. I have to say.
This summit is so important for our nation because it helps to strike on a topic that you have always helped us better understand, and that's the clarity and the dignity of work to help young people and adults find their place in our community.
Well, I'd say that, we believe at Snap-on, we believe, I think, all the companies I deal with, is that upskilling the American workforce is the seminal issue of our time. And there's no path to prosperity for America that's consistent and sure without success in that environment. You make me nervous when you say Mr. Pinchuk in a school setting, because, it brings me back to my early life, where I heard that quite often with a slightly different tone. Mr. Pinchuk, those are the things that happen quite often to me.
And you follow your career path, and I was able to do such a important resume introduction to our audience because you have had some remarkable experiences, not just in the United States, but around the world. And I think now of your leadership with Snap-on and the history of Snap-on, now over 100 years old. What do you think the connection is to the vision of Snap-on and why education, and our topic today, the alignment of education and industry, is so important?
Well, we come to it, as you've heard me say before, but I'll say it here for this audience, we come to it quite naturally because of our beginning. We were founded in 1920. There were very few vehicles on the road. There were like 280 million vehicles on the road in North America today, and there were 7 million vehicles in 1920. So the auto industry was just starting, but the auto repair industry was really in its nascent period. And nobody knew what tools a mechanic needed or what skills a mechanic actually needed to employ. So as an engineer from right up the road in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and he gets the idea to fashion 5 handles of different configurations, a T, an ellipse, a crank. And he puts them together with 10 sockets of different dimensions, and he fashions them so they snap on interchangeably. It was an innovation that revolutionized tool sets all over the country and showed the power of enabling working men and women in critical tasks. But he did something else that was even more important, that has shined the light for us all these decades. He eschewed he went around the normal way to sell. In those days, a toolmaker would sell to a distributor who then would on-sell to people. He told his salesman, go right into the garage, and in the garage, take those 5 handles and 10 sockets and lay them out on green felt as if they were as precious as surgeons' knives, implying that if the mechanic used these tools, he would declare to the world he was doing something special, perhaps as special as a surgeon. And the idea that the Snap-on brand, display of the Snap-on logo, is the outward sign of pride and dignity that working men and women take in their profession is what drives our corporation and is really defines who we are. We are the people of work. We have technicians declare that our tools are the most important thing they have. We have people, newlyweds, fashion their wedding cakes in the shape of our trucks. We have parents of newborns put our wrenches in the hands of their newborns because they believe what the newborn touches first will be influence their lives forever. And we have grieving families ask us for small boxes to bury the ashes of their loved ones. But you know, that's not really a lesson only about Snap-on. What it's a lesson about is one of the most important things people have. Sure, they want to make their families, keep their families warm and safe and dry in their profession, but they want respect and pride and dignity. This is what we all want. And this cuts to the idea of upskilling the American workforce, because we need to convince people that respect and pride and dignity are available everywhere, not just when you're a CEO or a president of a college or a pundit or an attorney or a physician. This is one of the most important things about this space. And it's why Snap-on isn't involved in this, because we are the people of work. We see it every day and we understand how important it is.
I think our audience is already feeling the energy. I know one time I heard you speak and you spoke about the spark of innovation, and that's what really created the idea of the Snap-on tool and product line. But what you've just described is something much more than that, in the way that you've been able to amplify the American worker through dignity and respect, and the distribution network that's been set up where everyone deserves that extra attention on what role they play in building a stronger society. I'm also curious about the alignment, which is so critical. And it's critical in the development of your products, but it's also critical in the development of the training of the workforce in order to have technicians that are going to be able to use the tools that Snap-on makes. Why is Snap-on so valued in the alignment between education and industry, and the fact that you have partnerships all over this country helping schools build their workforce through this educational program?
One of the natural things is if you're going to have people go into any profession, but certainly technical professions, because they are so multiplicative. There are so many different nooks and crannies around technical. Even in auto repair, there's a dizzying array of specialties. And that is, you have to match the curricula with the actual needs of the industry. This may be harder than you think. You know, there was a survey done by Gallup, and they said only 1% of college presidents thought that the parents of their students really understood what higher education is for. And what they found was that when they surveyed the parents, they said, well, we would like our children to have a great career. We'd like them to make money. 90% of the people were in that category. When they surveyed the college presidents, they said, well, we're supposed to educate people. We're supposed to allow them to process data, to be good citizens. Well, those are all good things, but they don't quite align. And so when you try to get, not all college presidents are as enlightened as you, I think, is that when you try to get the curriculums to match what industry really has, it's not so easy. It's not so easy. So I think, Brian, you were involved in founding the National Coalition of Certification Centers. And we've believed if we could go into the classrooms and try to design certifications which would say, this is the way we look at what we need from students, that would be a tremendous leap forward. And Snap-on is part of that. A number of different organizations like Train and Kubota and so on are part of that, and we've created certifications and put them around the country. I think we've done maybe 240,000 certifications so far, 71,000 just this year. We're in 778 schools. There are 3,700 instructors that are doing this kind of thing, and we've reached over 250,000 students, and we can do more. So this is an important thing because we understand that one critical element of, at least from a technical career point of view, and maybe from other careers, is to match what people are actually learning in school. Do you know, there is data that says that 1/3 of the kids who go to school don't end up working in the curriculum that they study because they're not learning things that match what they can use in the workplace. This is an important fact. So I think we think that's really important, that matching.
Absolutely, and it strikes really strongly with the report that was just announced earlier today, and that's the side-by-side comparison between the states on career readiness. We know from the research that's been done that we're missing things like data. We need better data. We need closer alignment. We need to also recognize that there are multiple pathways to success, certifications, different types of industry credentialing, and certainly some level of degrees and diplomas as well. But one of the unique things in your perspective, because you travel around the world, is the idea that if we can inspire a young person or an adult to pursue their passion and then connect that with the alignment of the curriculum and the appropriate credentials that go along with it, we can build the American dream. Because we often hear that the American dream is no longer available. What is your perspective on how do we engage this society on building the American dream through career readiness?
The American dream is no longer available? I'd say that's baloney. You know, really, I think part of it is, people say this. You know, Tyler Cohen wrote a book, Average is Over, and basically said the American dream was gone, but I think he was really mistaken. What's happened in America is not the American dream has gone away. It's that we've altered, in some cases, our assessment of what it is. See, people think today that the American dream, I think some people think today, that to achieve the American dream, you have to be the litany of professions I just talked to you about. You have to be a CEO or an attorney or a physician or a college president or a college professor or a host of things which people think deliver people by virtue of position or money or something like that to a good life. But in fact, the American dream has never been about that. The American dream has been about being able to keep your family warm and safe and dry, and have respect and pride and dignity. And I assure you that being able to the ability to keep your family warm and safe and dry, and respect and pride and dignity are available in the factories of America, in the repair garages of America, in the hospital wards of America, you know, all over. There's a whole bunch of places which really achieve the American dream. We've contorted that somehow. In my neighborhood when I was young, and I think this is a healthier position, we respected the carpenter as well as the bank president. You know, it was about who the person was, the integrity they had. You know, this is the kind of thing. And so I truly believe that it's still here. We have just forgotten how to talk about it. We tend, occasionally I give talks to people about this in Washington, and I'm in an event where Major Magazine, the staff of Major Magazine there, and I said, you know, that sometimes when people become a car mechanic or a factory welder, they believe their children have settled, this person has settled for the consolation prize of our society. And I was met with incredulity in their faces. I could tell it as you look at. And then I asked them, I said, how would you feel if your son or daughter, niece or nephew, declared to you they wanted to be a welder in a Snap-on plant? And they knew how they would feel. That's what other people's kids do. See, we have to overcome that attitude. And so I think the American dream is there. We just have to change our view of it because physically it is here.
You're helping all of us to better understand the passion and commitment that you have, and of course that resonates throughout Snap-on employees worldwide. And one of the unique things about this report is it gives some best practices, but the key to it all is how do we instill and motivate the classroom teacher and counselors and parents around these same values. What role does Snap-on play, or do you see yourself playing in helping to upskill the workforce of the education, the teachers, the counselors?
Well, part of it is, you know, you have programs all over the place, I think, that do this, and I think it's important to start early on this, you know. Like we have a K-12 program in Kenosha and other communities. Kenosha isn't our only community, although I think if you lived here, you'd think it was. I mean, we have 36 factories around the world and 18 in the United States. So I think we have a number of communities. So I think that's important. I think it goes all the way up to college. Carthage College has the Aspire program, which needs this. And you might think it's not necessary, but I have friends. I grew up in a lower middle class neighborhood, the kind of neighborhood where, you know, you feel like you don't need anything, but you don't have that much. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? That kind of neighborhood. Anyway, so when I was in that neighborhood, I have friends who got PhDs. PhD in chemistry, PhD in physics, PhD in literature. And then they got their PhD, and they decided, well, actually, I don't like what I'm doing. Because they hadn't thought about what a chemist did, actually, you know, or somebody who was in literature, or somebody who was in physics. They didn't really. So counseling, the kind of guidance, career guidance, is needed from the very beginning. You might say it's needed from the beginning, but it's also needed all the way through, because it's possible to be a leading light academically and screw up if you don't get good counseling. I mean, you're just not going to deliver yourself by virtue of intellect. And then if I come down lower, I think it's very important for kids to start understanding the value of technical skills. You know, just think about it. All right, you can be the greatest, you know, mathematician in the world or a great writer, but if you don't know how to use a screwdriver, you're kind of crippled. Really, there are many different skills. To understand vaguely how a car works is very helpful in your life. I mean, it's probably as helpful as some of the academic skills you get. I assure you, in my life, knowing how a car works is probably more helpful than, let's say, fluid mechanics, which I don't use anymore. You know, those kinds of things. And so I do think we ought to start at a lower level and recognizing that some of these non-academic things are worth learning. We're involved in a group called Skills USA, which tries to do that, and really it is one of those areas that tries to impart this. I learned my things, my sort of technical skills, in a lot of ways in the Boy Scouts. I was an Eagle Scout. I learned an incredible number of things through the Boy Scouts. I was a city kid, and got me through Vietnam, actually. If I hadn't been I'm not sure I would have ever gotten through Vietnam if I didn't learn those kinds of things. So practical skills that are sort of on the technical side are important to live a life functionally, I believe, and we ought to recognize that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then you get aware of it, so therefore maybe you decide that's what I want to do for my life, as opposed to being a PhD in chemistry and being trapped in a laboratory.
Sure.
Right?
Well, exactly. And starting early, as you mentioned, through organizational support, community support, and of course the schools, to help build that awareness of how those applied academic content can pursue a passion of interest in a technical field or any field that a student chooses. That's so essential. I'm always reminded, though, what the end game is, right? So what is this all about? And if we continue to improve our career development, are we going to be able to address America's skills gap? Are we going to really align the types of services and programs for our youth and our adults that are going to lead to family-sustaining jobs? What's your take on the importance of career readiness as it relates to the skills gap?
Well, there is a skills gap. I mean, you know, but skills gap kind of simplifies and makes it easier to deal with. Now, there is a gap. The National Association of Manufacturers will tell you that there are 800,000, today, there are 800,000 manufacturing jobs that are unfilled. And over the next 10 years, there will be 2.1 million. And that doesn't even contemplate onshoring and all the other stuff that comes from this. And a lot of professions are like that. Auto mechanics, they need more auto mechanics and things like that. So there is this kind of gap. And one element of it is the skills. Those skills are becoming more and more important. Factories are no longer dark and dumb and dirty. They are practically laboratories where people need to bring skills and statistics and capabilities around welding and things like that require substantial training and education. So we certainly need to do that. But the most important thing is this. We need to restore the respect for the dignity of work, because one of the reasons why people aren't going into these jobs is because they think that they're settling for the consolation prize. In Huxley terms, they think they're maybe becoming gamma minuses of this world. And in reality, let's think about this. You know, when you ask people, why is America ascending? You know, I would just, a quick point. America is we do business in 130 countries around the world, and we have problems in America, but I can tell you America is still the greatest country in the world without question, without equivocation, without qualification. It's true. It's true. We have only to see the world today in China and Russia and other places to realize this underlines it. And historians will tell you, have lined up behind this, that the reason America has been ascendant is because we have people broadly who could make and fix things. We had a huge, great group of people who had capabilities. Writ more broadly, we had people who had capabilities. Not just four-year capabilities, but technical capabilities. Not just physicians and attorneys, which we had those, but people who had capabilities. And you could see it in World War II when you know, the people like Rose and Will Monroe came out of the hills of West Virginia, of Tennessee, and worked in a Will Run plant. She and her sisters and brothers created the industrial substrate that allowed us to win the one war we could not afford to lose. But we just saw it just recently in the COVID. Think back to early days of the COVID. Fear was across this land. People were wondering. There was a shock. We didn't know what to do. And yet, the people of work in the factories, in the garages, in the warehouses, driving the trucks, met that fear with vigilance and accommodated the virus. These were the days before we had masks to pass out to people. It wasn't a question about whether you're going to wear masks. We didn't have them. And they kept our society from disintegrating while we engaged and defeated the COVID. People were much more worried about their next roll of toilet paper than they were worried about any pronouncement out of any university or any politician. And in fact, those are the people who did it. They are American heroes. And sometimes I think we lose that idea. None of this will be any good unless we abandon the thought that the default for everyone is to attend four-year college. See, that is what happens. We can counsel all we want, but we have to lose the attitude that, okay, we've got pathways, and if you don't think you can do well in college, if you can't be a physician or an attorney or an English professor, then you go over here. These things are equal in terms of importance. And in fact, if we talk about the COVID, maybe the people who drive the trucks are more important. And therefore, we should act like that. We should make sure that people feel, boy, you could do this or you could do that, and maybe the money is different or maybe it isn't. And for sure, if you go to college, it is not different, because Liberty University, Liberty Economics says that the average university graduate does make $1 to $1.5 million more in income, but Warren Buffett's in that number. If you take him out and you look at the bottom 25%, they make less than high school graduates, and fully 1/3 of college graduates don't finish, and they still have debt. 1/3 don't really match their curriculum to what they're doing. So there's a lot of questions about going to college being worth it, as opposed to learning how to be a truck driver or a welder. And we should accommodate that and recognize that these careers don't lead to certain success here and certain consolation here. It's much more complicated than that, and much more even and much more egalitarian, and therefore, and by the way, it's not so clear that I need a new psychologist more than I need a new car mechanic. And we have to adopt that in our counseling as well. This is the most important thing: the restoration of the respect for the dignity of work, and the recognition that actually technical careers may be better than white-collar careers. This is my message to you all.
I continue to be inspired every time I hear your message, Nick, because you speak so eloquently about the important role that we play in helping early education, teachers, counselors, parents, the community at large to understand what society's needs are and how we value all aspects of our society. And that is absolutely remarkable. And I know you share this voice on CNBC and Bloomberg and all different types of national media outlets. How can we work collectively together with industry, CEOs like yourself, to continue to champion this cause of the alignment between education and industry to help build that identity around the dignity of all jobs? What would you share with your other industry colleagues?
Here's what I would say. You know, there's a difference between endorsement and support. Everything that comes into my office, every idea that comes into my office, I can endorse. I can endorse it all. The crazy ideas get wiped out before they show up. This is also true in Washington. It's true in universities. So you can say, I want to restore the respect for the dignity of work. I want to have people go into technical education. I want to upskill the American workforce. But do you support it? That's a question. I can get any senator to endorse the things I say. The question is, when push comes to shove, will they support it? Or will they sacrifice the interests of upskilling on the altar of other interests? And I think the first test of that is to ask people on this conference who are in this room, who are in your administration, whether they really believe upskilling is a primary subject versus other things they might support. Because it's all a choice. It's a difference between endorsing and supporting. I believe, Snap-on believes, it's the most important thing. More important than whether we have lower or higher taxes. That's for sure. You know, I might argue about whether they should tax corporations more, but I think upskilling the American workforce is more important than keeping the taxes down. That's for sure.
You have done a remarkable job helping us better understand the role that industry can play and the voice that you carry, that amplification of the importance of career readiness. I want to thank you on behalf of the Coalition for Career Development and for helping lead our summit in better understanding the impact that we can all make in our own communities if we continue to be advocates and champions for this important cause. Thank you very much, Nick.
Thank you. Thank you.